Meantime, President Trump posting on Truth Social minutes ago, calling on allies to step up as the regime steps up attacks on oil and gas facilities across the Gulf region. President writing this: without the USA, NATO is a paper tiger. They didn't want to join the fight to stop a nuclear-powered Iran. Now that fight is militarily won with very little danger for them. They complain about high oil prices they're forced to pay, but don't want to help open the Strait of Hormuz, a simple military maneuver that is the single reason for the high oil prices. So easy for them to do with so little risk. Cowards. And we will remember.
Hello, Bobby Jones here from Midas Touch and Ballard Media Networks. You know, in the late 90s, there was an R&B group out of Atlanta called TLC. And one of their biggest hits was What About Your Friends? Fantastic song. When I hear it come on the radio on the now oldie station, I still listen to it because it still rocks. But the basic premise of that song was about loyalty and the people that you keep around you and how they can help build you up or tear you down. If I am an ally of the United States of America, right now that's my theme song. What about your friends? If I'm the UK, if I'm NATO, if I'm any of the Gulf state nations, I'm asking, what about your friends? Because right now, being associated with the United States is causing pain, discomfort, and basically the beginning of a new world order. So let's start looking at this from a macro sense. I know everybody's looking at the day-to-day movements of the conflict in Iran, but I think we are missing some very, very big pictures. Now, when you take America's historical closest allies, you know, the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, you have sitting in the White House someone who has gone ridiculously out of their way to embarrass them, not just disassociate in many respects, but embarrass them. Take, for instance, the many things he said about Canada when he came back into office the second term, making Canada a 51st state, demeaning the dominion of our neighbors to the north. Unprecedented. Then you look and see what he said about the United Kingdom, their Navy, their assets, the use of their bases for this mission that, of course, the United Kingdom did not sign up for, you know, using words like coward and weak, etc. And then to tip that off, what he said directly to the face of the Japanese Prime Minister, absolutely abhorrent. And take it from someone who was stationed in Japan for many years. The loyalty that had developed between the United States and Japan post-World War II is literally unlike anything we've seen before. For two nations that literally were going to rip each other apart, where the atomic bomb was dropped not once but twice, and to grow as close and as tight as Japan had grown with the United States, to have it basically undone with one 5-second soundbite is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, when we flex and move to the Gulf state nations, you know, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, all of these nations, with the exception of Israel, all allowing American bases to be there under the thought process that they will be protected and that they can open themselves up to the West and it can be good for both areas. Well, the second this war of choice kicked off with the United States and Israel leading that, we see exactly how much protection has been provided. The United Arab Emirates, another place where I was stationed for years, is really suffering. And if you understand the history of UAE, then you can understand why this is so cataclysmic for them. The UAE has gone out of its way to establish itself as a nation not reliant on oil. They learned the mistakes of the past where they relied on a natural resource, in their case, pearls, and how their economy fell apart when there was a shortage of them. So they went out of their way to create a financial center in the Middle East. And because of these strikes, because of the fact that the United States uses that area, their country, for staging, etc. They are paying a heavy price, a heavy price. Qatar is in the same boat. The largest air base in the Middle East is there. We basically fought the war in Afghanistan from Al Udeid Air Force Base there. They're suffering the consequences, so much to the point where they have tried to establish backdoor communications with Iran, etc., and trying to figure out a political solution while the United States continues to paint itself into a diplomatic corner. So where does this leave us? Despite all the rhetoric, I want you to focus on three major things: movement, material, and money. President Trump gave the ultimatum of 48 hours to Iran to open the strait. Well, then of course he comes out and says, okay, we're going to extend it 5 days because the talks that have been going on between Iran and the United States has been great. I have a very simple question. Who the hell are you talking to? Iran themselves have said, you're not talking to us. Then they tried to leak out that it was the Speaker of Parliament that they were talking to, and he flatly denied it. So who are you talking to? Or is this merely a story that's fabricated to try to calm down the surging oil price markets? Because they are surging. And despite what you may want to believe, the Iranians have a very good point. They have not said that they have shut down the strait necessarily. The insurance companies that insures all those thousands of vessels now stranded in the Strait of Hormuz, in the vicinity of the Persian Gulf, do not want to take on the risk of transiting it, because if they get hit by a missile or something like that, they will not be covered. This is what I mean by money. Meanwhile, when it comes to movement, you have the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit embarked on the USS Boxer Amphibious Ready Group, headed towards the Middle East to join the already en route 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit out of Okinawa, embarked on the USS Tripoli's Amphibious Ready Group. These are what we mean by movement of forces. So despite all the language, despite all of the rhetoric being walked back to try to make these markets look some certain way, the reality of it is, seems like we're hell bent on putting some boots on the ground somewhere. So you can say whatever you want. If that was the case, if real progress was being made, they would be slowing down. As a matter of fact, maybe even turning around. But that is not the case. As a matter of fact, the USS Gerald Ford, which had a fire under dubious circumstances, has pulled into Greece for repairs. There is no talk of them coming all the way back to the United States. The talk is for them to get quick repairs, do what they can, and then turn right back around. Now, if you're someone looking for peace, or in the case of Donald Trump, someone who has won the war, why then are you talking about all of these forces, coalescing in the Middle East? Why then are you talking about and letting it be leaked that Karg Island is a primary target moving forward? And then finally, why are your surrogates like Lindsey Graham, who is going over the top of this warmongering, being allowed to speak about taking over Iran? Why? None of it makes sense when you listen to the rhetoric. But if you look at the money, the material, and the movement, it makes sense. Finally, when it comes to materials, here's the thing that they said in the first couple of weeks of this conflict. There are plenty of interceptors to knock down everything that Iran shoots at Gulf nation partners and United States assets. Well, some of us knew that was not the case to begin with, and yet the barrage keeps coming. They keep saying how much Iran's had their missile inventory reduced. Well, then why is Israel getting hit hard every night now? If that is the case, why was there a missile strike in the old city in Jerusalem? I mean, let's be real here. The reality is, Iran has a ton of drones and missiles that the United States and Israel did not account for because they did not believe that this conflict would last this long. Period. And so now, out of desperation, the United States is trying to beg its allies, the same ones that have been dissed for the last year, the same ones that have had trash talked about them to their face for the last year, trying to drag them into this. And they're saying no. It's so bad that Bahrain is trying to go to the United Nations Security Council to ask for additional help to clear the shipping lanes at the Strait of Hormuz. And the United States is backing them. Why? Because contrary to the rhetoric, the United States cannot, quote, open the Strait of Hormuz by itself. It's not even about capability, which is lacking. It's really about will, the effort, the amount that it would take, the boots on ground that it would require, and the missiles that put ships at risk. Very simple. So as we continue to watch all of this unfold, and you hear Pete Hegseth get up there and lie pretty much every morning when he does his press briefings, look at the money, the material, and the movement of forces. That will tell you the truth.